So, Marvel Rivals dropped not too long ago on December 6, 2024, and suffice to say, it's doing pretty damn well, and it's captured quite a bit of interest from the gaming community, with the game having peaked at an all-time peak concurrent player number of 451,018 players, and they've basically sustained a similar number throughout the days that it's been out right now. It's topping Steam charts. It's among the most played games right now. 4th place currently. It's trending at number 2 here, right alongside Path of Exile 2. And if you look at all-time peak concurrent player numbers, you can see right here that Marvel Rivals is sitting pretty solidly in 25th place, which is not a bad place to be at all. Suffice to say, this game is a runaway success, at least during its launch period. We'll see how this game holds itself over the long term. It's sitting at a mostly positive score, 76% from over 30,000 reviews. Critic reviews are still kind of coming in. Currently, it's like still in the positive leading 72% with 5 critic reviews, but there's a generally favorable user score from Metacritic. And so it's all going pretty damn well. And if you compare Overwatch 2's numbers to Marvel's Rivals, you'll see that people are definitely right now leaning more towards checking out the newer, shinier hero shooter, with Overwatch 2 sitting at a player number of over 25,000 players right now. The 24-hour peak is higher at 37,552 players, but nowhere near close to Marvel Rivals' current, over 400,000 players coming in daily, which shouldn't be surprising given Marvel Rivals is a newer game, but the fact that it managed to pull that much of an audience base away from Overwatch at all is an achievement within itself, given that Overwatch is considered to be sort of the apex hero shooter of this type that Marvel Rivals definitely took inspiration from. And how Marvel Rivals is performing is certainly a stark contrast from how Concord performed, which was also a hero shooter, but without the Marvel brand recognition, without a free-to-play accessibility, it being priced at $40 didn't do it any favors. The fact that the character designs and the art style just didn't captivate audiences didn't help matters, and ultimately it ended up being a flop that only peaked in the hundreds of players. Now imagine that Blizzard executives aren't too happy about the way Marvel Rivals has been drawing so much attention away from Overwatch. And among the executives who isn't happy is a former Blizzard executive. What I'm showing you right here is a tweet that has been deleted since its posting. This was a tweet from Mike Ybarra, who had some comments about Marvel Rivals and his belief that it's a clone of Overwatch and that certain characters are basically a one-to-one clone of ones you can find in Overwatch. But he quickly got community noted on one aspect of his comment that was just entirely factually incorrect, and it kind of made for an embarrassing public display. So right here is the summary of what transpired. Former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra calls Marvel Rivals an Overwatch clone in a now community noted and deleted tweet. Tons of people saw what this tweet was about before it was deleted, but right here you can see that they have a screenshotted version of the tweet with millions of people having viewed this and tons of interactions. So what did Mike Ybarra say exactly that made people facepalm for him? This right here is the tweet in question. It reads, "Looks like Overwatch Marvel Rivals ships tomorrow. Much like Light of Motram, a clear copy of Horizon Zero Dawn out of China." And this is where it gets really embarrassing. I mean, even the character name Widowmaker in Overwatch versus Black Widow in Marvel Rivals, LOL. NetEase/Tencent, all the same. I don't know if Mike Ybarra has just been living under a rock his whole life, but just about everyone will clearly recognize the factual error here. Black Widow came long before Widowmaker did. As the community note itself highlights, Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is a popular Marvel hero who made her comic debut in 1964, more than 50 years before Overwatch and Widowmaker were created. So it feels like Mike Ybarra just wasn't aware of who Black Widow was, which I don't know how that can happen when Black Widow has been a part of mass media for years now, especially with her introduction in the MCU. And by the way, even if you were only aware of the character through MCU, she was introduced in Iron Man 2, which came out in 2010, which is before Overwatch came out. But yeah, the fact that Mike Ybarra thought that they were being so original by naming an Overwatch character who's a femme fatale Widowmaker, it's just the height of ego. If anything, one could argue that the reverse is true, that Widowmaker was inspired by Black Widow. Now, in Marvel Rivals, Black Widow is a sniper-type character akin to Widowmaker, but he's not saying that. He's specifically highlighting how the names Widowmaker and Black Widow, that there's a clear parallel there, and that it was Marvel Rivals who copied Overwatch on that front, when the opposite is likely true. Even if you were to compare the appearances of the two characters, yes, they both have that femme fatale with a sniper rifle appearance, but they're visually distinct. And that's one thing that Marvel Rivals deserves credit for, is that all the character designs are based on Marvel characters, and you cannot confuse them or mistake them for Overwatch characters at all, except for like similar archetypes, I guess. But generally, they are very distinct looking. I also imagine that Mike Ybarra watched the trailer itself and probably saw that gameplay-wise, yes, Black Widow plays akin to Widowmaker in that she is a sniper-based character. But having played the game itself, and I myself having played as Black Widow, I can tell you that she plays differently enough from Widowmaker that you wouldn't be able to confuse them, and they're not like exactly one-to-one copies. Even her ultimate is quite different from Widowmaker's. I mean, the aesthetic of like the high-tech scope is definitely kind of similar, but that aside, it's a sniper-based character, and Blizzard and Overwatch doesn't have ownership over this style of character, and it makes sense that this style of character was applied to Black Widow, given her femme fatale status and, you know, given she's an assassin. And it's not just Mike Ybarra. Some people have been trying to claim things like how Cyclops is basically legally distinct Genji, when, again, the Marvel character came before the Overwatch character did. And so somebody highlighted here to someone who said that Marvel Rivals has a legally distinct hot Genji. This tweet right here that went viral responded with legally distinct. That's literally Cyclops from X-Men, garnering tens of thousands of likes and over 1 million views. And people highlighted even more specifically how this specific Cyclops is Peach Momoko's version of the character. You can see right here that that's exactly her. Now look, there's no denying that Marvel Rivals does take inspiration from certain Overwatch abilities, and they essentially take those abilities and remix them. So right here is an article that highlights how, for example, characters like Star-Lord blends Tracer's Hornet-like hit-and-run style with Soldier 76's aimbot ultimate. Rocket Raccoon mixes Baptiste's healing and damage alternating weapons with an old Orisa ult that powers up every teammate within range of a device he sets down in the middle of a battlefield. Adam Warlock harkens back to Mercy's original team reviving resurrection. And then Cyclops does, much like Genji, throw shurikens and also has like a dash attack move. But none of these characters feel like exact clones of their Overwatch counterparts, and the abilities are remixed enough with new additions and new elements and new ideas. And not to mention that if you want to make a hero shooter, some of these abilities are just going to be standard for this particular genre. Certain abilities just are so universal in their necessity in this type of game that, yeah, there's bound to be crossover between various hero shooters. There's bound to be similar abilities across numerous hero shooters. But primarily, I feel like Marvel Rivals does a good job of equipping every hero with a kit of abilities that is suitable for them, where you can see them being that hero when you play as them. You actually do feel like you're that hero. And I think the big difference between something like Marvel Rivals and the recently announced Light of Motoram is that Marvel Rivals aesthetically, artistically, does distinguish itself from something like Overwatch, whereas Light of Motoram just straight up looks like Horizon, not only in the artwork that's been presented, which one-to-one, like it's hard to distinguish which one of these is Horizon at first glance, and not to mention that some of the creature designs in the game are literally one-to-one copies, essentially, with a little bit of the homework changed. Marvel Rivals, on the other hand, like every single character is a Marvel character. Their designs are unique to Marvel, and you can tell the difference between Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. Now, Marvel Rivals is a hero shooter, and it does take a lot of inspirations from Overwatch in the gameplay department, but I don't feel like gameplay mechanics and game design elements and gameplay ideas should be copyrightable or patentable. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like those are elements that a game maker should be allowed to take inspiration from, as long as they add their own spin to it and add their own flair to it, which I think Marvel Rivals does enough of. Like, it is very close to Overwatch in a lot of aspects, but in a lot of other areas, it's, you know, it's different enough. Now, Light of Motram, on the other hand, the gameplay is actually distinct from Horizon, in that Light of Motram is more of like an Arc style game, or it's basically more of a copy of Palworld in terms of gameplay mechanics and the kind of genre of game it is. But, I mean, in terms of the aesthetic and art style and the visual elements and even the audio and music and stuff, so much of it feels like it's directly copying Horizon. And this is where copyright infringement can potentially become an issue, when you cannot visually distinguish one thing from another because they look so similar. Marvel Rivals doesn't have that issue. It does not look like Overwatch when it comes to like character designs and overall art style. There's some aesthetic elements that are kind of comparable, but they're visually distinct enough that it's not going to have that issue. Same thing with like Palworld. There's certain pals in Palworld that do resemble certain Pokemon. Some of the similarities are like hard to deny. I think if they would have gone for a unique art style or just unique designs for some of these pals, they would have gotten away with it, because the gameplay of this game, despite having Pokemon-like elements in terms of catching monsters, it's still ultimately primarily a survival game where you use your pals to fight enemies and then, you know, collect resources to further build up your base. That stuff is very different from how you play Pokemon. But what Nintendo's trying to do is sue Palworld, not because some of the pals look similar to Pokemon, because that's just a tougher legal battle. What they're trying to claim is that the game violates patents in terms of how Nintendo has patented systems like throwing a ball to catch monsters and characters in a field, an aiming system for that purpose, and a system for writing characters. That's where I think things get scummy. The patenting of game ideas, gameplay designs, gameplay mechanics, that's the stuff that I think no one company should own, and where companies should be allowed to take inspiration. That's how we have gotten so many amazing Souls-likes. That's how, you know, League of Legends and Dota have become a thing, each with their own distinct style of MOBA. They borrow a lot from each other, but they ultimately still have their own take on a genre. That's how we have seen so many different types of Metroidvanias and shooters and you name it, and how we have seen genres evolve and new ideas take hold of these genres, and all of that lead to like inspired game releases that, yes, clearly take inspiration from a source that kind of established that genre, but maybe they made it better in some ways or added a new twist to it that made that genre more interesting. And that is something that should be encouraged. That is different from stealing somebody else's assets and visual style and music and stuff like that. One area where Marvel Rivals is winning a lot of points is the way they're handling Battle Pass. Once you purchase a luxury Battle Pass, their name for a premium Battle Pass, you can continue to redeem its rewards in subsequent seasons if you don't finish it during the current season. There's no need to worry about not having enough time to complete it. Basically, they're getting rid of Battle Pass FOMO, which is the best case scenario for a free-to-play game that has a Battle Pass, a premium Battle Pass system with it, and it's something that not a lot of companies do. Alongside the promise that heroes, maps, and other gameplay elements are completely free, they'll only be charging for cosmetics that will provide visual changes. There'll be no pay-to-win elements, which is a stark contrast from how Overwatch 2 initially launched, where they required you to either buy the premium Battle Pass or grind through a free Battle Pass to unlock new heroes, something that they did eventually get rid of starting in Season 10, but by then the reputation of this game had been damaged, whereas Marvel Rivals is providing all heroes for free at no extra charge or no extra grind requirements from the outset, and so its reputation is already in a much better place at launch than Overwatch 2 was. And then beyond that, Marvel Rivals had one of the smoothest launches for a live service that had such a massive influx of players at launch, with no server crashes, no lag, no queue times, just a buttery smooth launch. And I myself playing the game while the game is, you know, peaking at like over 400,000 players today, I had a very smooth experience with the title myself. I can attest to this, and queuing up for matches, I mean, it was all very instantaneous. There was no queues to log into the game itself. There was no like weird server issues. Everything is running as smoothly as you'd want it to. It feels like a game that's been out for long enough where servers have stabilized, except that's the state that the game is in at launch, even when the volume of players is so massive currently. So I don't know what miracle they worked here, but this is kind of unprecedented. Now, there is some discourse about the pricing of Marvel Rivals skins, you know, anywhere from like $16 to $18. And so here's a post highlighting to how people react to Overwatch 2 having $18 skins as being inappropriate. But when Marvel Rivals has $18 skins, people are okay with it, responding to this individual saying that they look actually decently priced. Others argue that for $18, you do get more bang for buck than a purchase from Overwatch 2, with bundles that include MVP intros, a skin, a spray, and a calling card. Others have also pointed out how every single individual skin in Marvel Rivals has its own MVP animation. So when you purchase a skin, it's not just the skin you're purchasing other visual elements that come with it as well. And the MVP animations have been among the highlights of Marvel Rivals that have gone viral, that a lot of people are super psyched about because they look like this.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
They definitely put a lot of effort
That's fucking awesome, dude.
in giving each character the iconic identities that they hold in the Marvel universe. Same with like Venom here, or Space Knight, Venom, or same here with Iron Man. I mean, I cannot deny this is pretty dope, and so many references to, you know, comic books and also the movies. Here we have Spider-Man. So yeah, the fact that each skin comes with its own MVP animation that looks that cool, that looks like a lot of effort was put into it, it's making the value of these skins just feel greater. Though I think it could still be argued that $18 skins, like at that point, we're not dealing with microtransactions, and that's still quite a hefty price. Once upon a time, something like this would have been unacceptable, but I feel like we've gotten to a point where these kinds of price points for skins have become so normalized that people no longer raise an eyebrow. And so in that sense, AAA publishers and corporations are winning and are being successful in pushing that goalpost of normalizing more expensive microtransactions. So that's definitely a negative aspect. But a lot of the skins in this game, I think people are pleased by, and all of the cosmetic elements attached to them, like the MVP highlight animations and the like. And so generally what you're seeing out there on social media is the expression that Marvel Rivals is doing ultimately, despite its imperfections, a lot right, and that it's currently like more appealing to hero shooter folks than Overwatch 2, and so you're seeing memes like these that are going viral. So Marvel Rivals and Overwatch 2, he does exactly what I do, but better. Or the Homelander meme here, you're just a cheap fucking knockoff, says Overwatch 2. Marvel Rivals, oh no, I'm the upgrade. And stuff like this has garnered tons of views. This one tweet, 3.8 million views and almost 100,000 likes, with a lot of people echoing these sentiments. Though on the other hand, there's some criticisms about its current systems, like how progression is challenge-based, kind of like how Halo Infinite did it back in the day, and a lot of people are hoping that they'll change the Battle Pass progression system so that it's not challenge-based, so that you do earn experience towards moving forward in the Battle Pass just by playing the game instead of having to do all of these challenges. Halo Infinite tried it back in the day. It was awful then. I don't know why companies are still trying to do that. So that's one kind of sore spot in what has overall been a successful and well-received launch. But with all that said, word of mouth surrounding this game is spreading far and wide, not only because it's Marvel and it's a well-recognized brand, but also because people are genuinely having an enjoyable time. The fact that the cosmetic and aesthetic elements like the MVP highlights look so cool, that stuff's becoming viral. And then the gameplay, moment-to-moment chaos that can happen, and all of the cool gameplay kind of highlights that are being shown on the internet. Stuff like this, how Wolverine plays and looks like he should, and how when you're like on a roll with these characters, you can see how good it feels to play as these characters, on top of the fact that you're fulfilling the power fantasy of playing as these beloved Marvel characters. All of that's going viral, so you can see the mobility of Spider-Man, how insane that is, and how many cool plays you can pull off if you master the abilities that these individual heroes possess. And all the while, the game is also very accessible. It's not like super hard to pick up. You've only got a handful of abilities to master per character, and you can find varying difficulties in terms of characters to pick. But yeah, you can see how crazy some of these plays can get, how chaotic everything gets, and in turn how fun playing this game can actually be. The fact that it's basically Overwatch, like that type of hero shooter, but with recognizable Marvel characters and all the chaos that ensues, because the game ultimately is fun to play, and it's fun to see all these abilities pop off, and it's fun to be on a roll and see these characters kind of do awesome things that you made happen because of your skills. And there's also unique elements to Marvel Rivals, like team-ups, where if there are certain characters on the field, they have unique team-up abilities based on that pairing, and it could be duos or trios. If they stick together, they have unique abilities based on the fact that those particular characters are together, and that's, I don't think, something that Overwatch does. So there are unique elements to this game that, you know, do add a unique spin. So this is Captain America gameplay. Right here we got some gameplay of Cyclock, the Genji-like character, if you will. And yes, she throws some shurikens and has that dash ability, but she doesn't play exactly like Genji either. I've played her as well. And, yeah, like she doesn't have Genji's mobility, for example. And she has, like, some stealth elements that Genji doesn't have. So, yeah, some similarities can be spotted with Genji, but it's still a different kit altogether, ultimately. Stuff like this you can do in Marvel Rivals. I mean, come on. How can this stuff not go viral? How can word of mouth not spread? And also, Squirrel Girl has gone viral. So the character designs are so good in this game, but also the thirst surrounding certain characters like Squirrel Girl, that's also helped in the game going viral. But yeah, the way all the characters look, the way their voice, their appearance, their aesthetic, cosmetic, their mechanics, like the way all the characters just embody those characters individually, that's, I think, also at the core of why people are engaged with this title, because Marvel characters are so beloved, and when they're represented so well in a game where you can feel the power of fantasy, but also like visually see it in so many different facets of the game, yeah, it's just gonna garner a lot of interest and a lot of appeal and a lot of engagement. And so Marvel Rivals has been doing it right. And Mike Ybarra pointing out how Black Widow is a copy of Widowmaker certainly doesn't do Overwatch any favors, and if anything, stories like that going viral is only going to bring more eyes to Marvel Rivals, and it's only going to want to make people support Marvel Rivals more, because that's just such an embarrassing statement and argument to try to make against Marvel Rivals. But yeah, that's kind of everything you need to know about the situation with Mike Ybarra and just the general state of Marvel Rivals and how well it's doing, both in terms of how the audience is receiving it and just how many players are actually engaging with the title, and how well social media has received Marvel Rivals and how much fun generally people are having with the game and all that it has to offer. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Marvel Rivals based on what you've seen, or if you've played the game, are you enjoying the game like many others have been? I, for one, think the game's pretty fun for what it is, based on the time that I've had with the game. But share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.